You can't sit here, talk about decentering men, talk about how men ain't this, men ain't that, men don't meet your requirements. How can you even have requirements when you don't even like men? You have a requirement for the thing you won't even accept? Be a part of, this group that sees themselves as the masculine, forward-thinking, logical individuals. Why are you making content about women? In the same vein at which you are so confident in your stances on things, you are also the walking contradiction of it as well. How the does that make sense? So I think femcels and incels should date each other. And I got my reasons. Now, you'll notice this has been the setting for the last couple of videos. It's gonna be that way until the end of the year. I'm keep making these talking head videos because, most of y'all with your families, and we all as creators know that, for the most part, views are kind of low. But whatever, that's a different kind of conversation. Anyway, let's talk about femcels and incels. Now, why am I even talking about this, right? First of all, I made a video talking about MGTOW and how I seen this post from Media Man talking about how, the 80-20 or Pareto principle does not necessarily apply to dating, at least as far as like hardcore data is concerned. And I commented on it, some guys came at me for it, and I made a video about it. Now, in that video, I do recall me saying that a lot of the people that some of y'all watch, especially on YouTube, right? A lot of these YouTubians, they're losers, more or less, right? And for some reason, a lot of y'all took offense to that. And I could only imagine that's because a lot of you live parasocial lives. And this isn't me calling you out. I'm not calling you a loser directly, but I said a lot of the people that you follow have like loser principles and tendencies for the most part. I don't know why you got mad at me, but if anything, I have to thank you because y'all actually did me a favor. Now, if you go to that video and you go into the comments, you'll see there are some people that were, commenting, calling me a loser because, I'm making a video about it. Buddy, I get paid to make these. Not a lot, but, I get paid to make them. So whatever, I'm gonna make them. But I like talking about this kind of stuff anyway, right? And it's never from a perspective of me like chastising. It's always from like the observer. Like I'm just from the outside looking in. Like I don't live y'all lives. Y'all don't live my life for sure. So I really can't be that mad about, the current state of affairs. My life isn't that bad. But some of you are so heavily invested in being upset at women. It finally clicked for me. Between that and a couple other things that I've seen online, that clicked for me. And one of the first things is that a lot of you are much like femcels. So a great example is, there are a lot of y'all that were talking shit in the comment section. Or, some of you are probably just observing and agreeing with them anyway. But, the one thing that I find particularly interesting is two things. The first one being, for guys who don't necessarily care about feelings, the fact that what I said upset you and you commented in such a way definitely does show that you are more likely to be in your feelings than the women that you chastise to be in their feelings as well. And then the second thing is, for guys that talk about they went their own way, y'all make dedicated, unmonetized, low subscriber channels with like 50-minute plus videos talking about women. Now, one can make the argument and say, really, there's no difference between, these people and me. I'd argue that. But listen, the difference here is, A, I make content for the masses, right? Like, I don't sit here, talking shit about women. Do I make content that criticize certain women? Yeah, because that's the video. Like, there's a video about a woman cheating. I'm gonna talk about it. The same thing for guys, I'm just talking about dating and relationships. But to be a part of, this group that sees themselves as the masculine, forward-thinking, logical individuals, why are you making content about women? I thought you went your own way, which leads me to the statement that I'll stand on forever, which is most of you didn't go your own way, you were sent your own way. Sounds paradoxical, but not really if you think about it, because for like the, 5% of men that are like, women are constantly approaching them, they're constantly on dates, they're constantly with women that, either provide very little value to them or, they're just not pleasant to be around. That guy decides, what, I'm gonna take a break from dating women. I'm not gonna date women, I'm not gonna talk to them romantically, none of that's gonna be casual, friendly peer-to-peer conversations going forward if it's a coworker, yada, yada, yada. Those guys are like in the 1 to 5 percentile. odds are, buddy, that's not you. If there's anything that I've learned, because the funny thing is, at some point, I was the type of person who did consume this kind of content, but you grow, right? Like, that was like 6 years ago. I'm in my 30s now, right? So, like, you grow as a human. And from there, as someone who makes the content, but doesn't watch the content anymore, like, yo, eventually, here's the reality of it. For a lot of guys, or just in general, there's some truth to some of this content, right? Like, there are some things you should look out for. There are some dangers in dating. There are some risks involved when it comes to, having intercourse. As benign as it sounds, that's the realities of life. Inherently, there's risk in everything. So there is a grain of truth in a lot of the content that's being made here. But for some of you, you adhere to like the rage bait. You like your feelings to be validated, and they're not valid. Like, they're valid in a sense that they're yours, right? Like, much like opinions, you own them, they're yours. But that doesn't mean that they're valid in the grand scheme of things. Like, as far as society is concerned, no one gives a fuck. Like, your inability to get women in a world that is, or a society in which is probably the most sexually relaxed, not even to be crude, but to just be as blunt as possible, bro, that's really a you problem. Like, that's really a you problem. Because, and this is why I'm going to talk about femcels too, so please don't get caught up in the idea that, I'm just bashing men. That's not what I do, right? Again, I'm an observer. I look at both sides. I know some people like to call themselves a centrist. I like to believe that I'm a true centrist in the fact that I truthfully do not care about the outcomes for either party. I don't give a fuck about what happens to either of you. If y'all don't procreate, that's on you. If you don't date, that's on you. If you pass away a lonely, miserable fuck, whether you're male or female, I don't care. That's on you. I'm just making the content. It's a business opportunity. Let that be known first and foremost. Everything that I do here is always in the name of revenue. At least I'm honest, right? There are a lot of people out here that will grift, lie in your face, day in, day out, and they will ask you for every fucking penny you have. I mean, I might at some point, but at least I'm being honest with you. But anyway, listen, if you cannot attract women, it's your problem. But now here's the ultimate reality. That is relegated for a very small percentage of individuals. And I'm talking low because I've got neighbors outside. But that's relegated to a very small percentage of individuals. There are some of you out here that can attract women. The problem is you don't like the women that you attract. Pay attention now. You don't like the women that you attract because they might actually just be conventionally unattractive. I'm not sparing any feelings here, right? I model. People call me ugly. I'm very well in my right to know who's attractive and who's not. But anyway, listen. You can attract women, but you don't like the women. This is one of the reasons why I don't like recording outside, but I like recording outside. But this is one of the reasons. This is one of the things, right? You can attract women. You just don't like how they look because they might be conventionally unattractive. They might not be the ethnicity of your preference. We could admit that, right? Everyone's got their ethnic preferences. That's the reality. That's facts of life. I know a lot of people like to adhere to the JBW, but to be honest with you, preferences are a lot more diverse than you'd like to think. So, they may not be your ethnic preference. Okay, sure. But let's not argue the fact that you can attract women. Let's not argue that, because the reality is you probably can, but again, you don't like how they look. And one of the reasons why you might not like how they look may not be for any of the reasons that I just explained or described, but for the simple fact that they don't look like the women on Instagram. But then one has to ask themselves, like, why would you want to date the women on Instagram who are more likely to be quote-unquote gold diggers? I mean, some of them are, right? But the ones that are more likely to be gold diggers, who are the Instagram models, why would you want the women around you to look like that? Because odds are, if it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it is a duck, right? So, like, odds are that would be the exact characteristic of the women around you. You following? So why would you put yourself in that position anyway? And then the last thing is, one thing that I'll never quite understand when it comes to guys who are MGTOW, who are going monk mode and things of that nature, why do you consume content about dating relationships? Why do you consume content that talk about women, whether it be bashing them or otherwise? Like, if that's not something you care about, why is it in your stratosphere, in your atmosphere? And now let's segue over to the women. if you like what I'm saying so far, this is a side note, this is another segue. If you like what I'm saying so far, we're on the road to 10K. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. I talk about shit like this all the time, not usually from such a lackadaisical perspective. I usually do it in like a video essay format, or I'm inside the home office talking my shit. But either way, if you like what I'm talking about, hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 10K. I want you to be a part of it. But now let's talk about the women. So there are some women out here that are incels, but they're just femcels, right? Like, that's the reality of it. But there's some of y'all out here that are the same like these incels. You hate men. You hate the shit out of men. Yet you can't keep men out of your mouth to save your life. If you're a femcel, argue with me in the comments. You hate the shit out of men, but yet you talk about them day in, day out. It's the same thing with people who say they hate, you know, a certain ethnicity or a certain gender or a certain whatever. You hate it so much, but you talk about it so much in the same breath. That's not hate. That's just love disguised as something you don't like, but you like it. You obviously like it. You can't sit here, talk about decentering men, talk about how men ain't shit, men ain't this, men ain't that, men don't meet your requirements. How can you even have requirements when you don't even like men? You have a requirement for the thing you won't even accept? Like, I wonder sometimes, because I know a lot of it's you younger folks, but I wonder sometimes if y'all genuinely, like, do y'all meditate or think about some of the things that you digest or some of the things that you say? Because in the same vein at which you are so confident in your stances on things, you are also the walking contradiction of it as well. How the fuck does that make sense? How do y'all rationalize that in your brain? That's a level of insanity that doesn't quite make sense. It's almost benign, right? Like, it's very subconscious, not like something people are talking about. But that doesn't make sense. You hate something so much, yet you talk about it so much. That's strange. Which is why my solution is the both of you should just date each other. Now, first of all, will the both of you find each other unattractive? Probably. And, you know, honestly, if we're talking frank, maybe the rest of society will find you unattractive as well. But that will be your looks match. I mean, can you be that mad? And honestly speaking, what's more important is the person's character, right? How they come off as an individual. Not so much, you know, what they look like. What they look like is great, you know, it's fun. But that's not the end-all be-all, right? And I think that's ultimately what some of y'all are missing. Like, your relationships aren't always fun. Sometimes they suck. Most of the time they suck. But, you know, when you're able to connect with someone that you enjoy being around, looks are important, but at some point those things fade, right? And I don't know what your dating goals are. It could be short-term, could be long-term. Regardless of the term, you should find someone that you want to, you know, at least be able to sit down and have a conversation with. Yo, I swear to God, every person on this block has a dog. Everyone. Anyway, I think that is my cue to go. I'm going to keep these short and sweet and to the point. Let me know your comments and the thoughts below. What do you think? Personally, I think femcels and incels should date each other. You two are a match made in heaven, an ugly heaven. Now I'm just being a dick. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.